You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined by the one and only Oliver Camacho. All right, this week, Sun Lee Pierce goes Inside the Huddle. Currently starring in the Met's premiere production of The Adventures of Kavalier and Clay, the Chinese-American mezzo-soprano looks back at her breakout season, which included a leading role at Des Moines Metro Opera, being an Operalia finalist, and jumping into her Met debut. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, Grace Bumbry gets the posthumous PBS bump, and everyone hates the new music director at La Fenice. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. You can also stream episodes of OBS every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central at amplisoundsradio.com. Email us your hot takes by writing to mailbag@operaboxscore.com or upload a voice memo using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you'll get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. Now, ladies, gentlemen, folks of all genders who may be listening to this, I want to open the curtain very slightly at what I have to deal with here on Opera Box Score. We actually, when we're doing the whole production, we are following along on a Google Doc live, so I can see updates. And under opening commentary, I see next to Oliver's name just the one word: tennis.
Aren't you so excited that there's a tennis update?
I'm so excited.
I just want people to know that at 4 a.m. Central Time, there is the finals of the ATP tournament in Japan, which will be between Carlos Alcaraz and Taylor Fritz. And as I said in the past couple weeks, like, I'm sort of done with my official tennis watching season.
And yet here we are.
So I'm not paying attention to every single tournament. But this match is particularly interesting because Taylor Fritz sort of got revenge on Carlos Alcaraz at the Laver Cup, which doesn't count towards the total points for each player at the end of the year, but this Japan Open does. So I assume that Carlos Alcaraz is going to bring his good game to this tournament final, but it's at 4 a.m. So we'll see if I am able to get up. It's good practice for Pledge Drive, which is coming up at WFMT, for me to get up that early. So I
believe in you. This is actually not a joke. I literally remembered this as you were talking about tennis, and I was tuning it out. I literally had a dream a couple of nights ago where I was playing tennis and I was doing really badly. And I remember you were in the audience judging me for it. That is not a joke. I literally just remember that.
People think I'm so judgy. I don't know where it comes from. I've tried so hard to change my reputation. I can understand how people who have been listening to my content since like 2006 might think I'm judgy. But I feel like I made a change, like a conscious change about how I talk and how I'm perceived, or how I want to be perceived. But I guess I can't shake it. Even in your dreams.
You get deep in my subconscious. You have put tennis in there, and you are there making fun of me about my French pronunciation too, probably. Let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
Today we are interviewing Sun Lee Pierce, who just in the past 3 seasons has gone from being somebody I've sort of heard of to somebody who seems to be everywhere. You can all look at her website, which we'll link to on the notes for today's episode at operaboxscore.com. But let's just say that the 23-24 season is when I think a lot of people began to take notice. She was able to make her Met debut in a step-in in the production of La Rondine, which went on to become an HD broadcast. She sang Rosina at Des Moines Metro Opera in Barbara Seville. Then in the 24-25 season, she sang in Opera Philadelphia's production of L'Amant Anonyme. We interviewed Simone Harcum about that. I saw her this summer as Fox in Cunning Little Vixen, opposite friend of the show here at High Park. And most notably, she sang the role of Cherubino in the Met HD broadcast of the Richard Eyre production of The Marriage of Figaro, which is a very, very high-profile assignment. And on top of that, in 2024, she was a third-place winner in Operalia. So we are going to, I don't like to do this all the time in our interviews. We're actually going to talk a little bit about, those steps to becoming Suddenly Pierce, because I feel like it's all so new. And, these are the years in the career that everybody wishes that they would have, like these big breakout years. So I wanted to go over these things with her. Before we get to this conversation, by the way, she is singing in the current production of Kavalier and Clay, Adventures of Kavalier and Clay at the Met, and we'll talk about that as well. But let's listen to her Operalia finals performance of Una voce poco fa. Just a little bit of Suddenly Pierce's performance at the finals of the 2024 Operalia competition in Mumbai with the National Center for Performing Arts Mumbai Orchestra, conducted by Kamal Khan. Mr. Khan, you'll have to tell me yourself. Welcome to Opera Box Score, Suddenly.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So, I try to keep track of everybody, and I go to young artist things and I hear people when they're, auditioning or when they're doing whatever apprenticeship program. I just keep track of people. And sometimes I remember names. But I feel like all of a sudden your name was in my face and it was already that you were fully arrived as an artist. And I wonder if other people feel the same way. I think it started because you were in the Richard Eyre Figaro HD. I was like, how come I've never heard of her before? And you were so good in that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I was looking at your CV and seeing that it feels like 2023/24, everything ramped up for you like maximum speed. Is that sort of how it happened?
I mean, I guess so. In many ways, I feel like I've been slowly plugging along here since I finished my time in the Houston Grand Opera Butler Studio. But I definitely think that there's something to the idea of success is where consistency meets opportunity. And I feel like I'd kind of been plugging away for a little bit of time and then was gifted a really exciting opportunity to take part of the Metropolitan Opera's production of Nozze, and that and Operalia, just so many things I think definitely have changed within the last season or so. So yeah, I think in many ways, I agree with that.
But in the 23-24 season, you were also in La Rondine, and that was your Met debut.
Yes.
And they put that on an HD broadcast as well.
Yes, that's
so
correct.
Your first role at the Met also is one of their biggest products now, and where you get the most exposure.
Yes, definitely.
And you feel just okay about that. You're like, yeah, that's what it was. Was it a big deal? I mean, it feels like it would be a big deal to me, or maybe the fact that you're doing your Met debut in and of itself was already a big deal enough.
Well, I mean, as it happens with some of these things, Rondine was also a jump-in opportunity for me. And so I think when things fall into your lap, not so much at the last minute, but, with not as much time to mentally and emotionally prepare for it. You're kind of just like feet to the fire. You're put to the test, and you just have to go and do it. And so I think because of that, there wasn't as much of a any kind of like mental buildup for me. And it was just a matter of just going in and doing it. And of course, the my role in Rondine was a smaller one that was also kind of a part of a trio of girls. So that was a relatively low pressure opportunity for in terms of like a first outing at the Met. And then of course taking on Cherubino was like a much I had a much larger sense of responsibility stepping into that.
Okay, well, I won't expect you to comment on this, but I'll just see what your reaction is because that HD broadcast had a little bit of drama even before the music started. And like Peter Gelb came out and said that Jonathan Tettleman was going to persevere, that he wasn't well. Yeah. And, that was his Met HD, debut. And so, I mean, I actually am a fan of Jonathan Tettleman, so it's no shade against him, but just like the idea that he wanted to make sure the audience knew that he wasn't his best on that performance,
Yeah, I mean, I can't, I mean, in some ways now I can, but especially at the time, I think there's no way that I could ever appreciate the pressure of a debut like that for someone like him. Like I remember the New York Times had done a feature on his arrival to the Met. Mm-hmm. And, with so many expectations already set before he got out there, and to then be met with something like that, like allergies are not feeling well at this time. That's, there's so much anticipation built up to it. I can't imagine the pressure that he must have been feeling in that moment, and to be able to have the wherewithal to, continue on. That's a real pro. That's a real professional.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, he sort of broke my heart in that. I mean, that role is the saddest tenor role.
I know, yeah. It's devastating. Yeah. I know, a tortured artist for sure.
Well, sticking with this 23-24 season, the summer of 24, you also were at Des Moines doing Barbara
Yes.
Seville. So Des Moines had already identified, because like that contract must have come in before any of this happened. They identified something in you. So it feels like maybe, to take it back to, you said Butler Studio at Houston Grand Opera, maybe that is the place that you felt like you got the right experiences to prepare you for these sort of major assignments. And I don't know how old you are, I won't even ask, but I feel like you're very young. And a lead role, which led to, I don't know, maybe you were singing a lot of Rosina and, then stepping on stage in Mumbai and singing, Una voce poco fa, and doing very well at Operalia. That feels like some kind of preparation.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of preparation, but I think if I could put one word to what I felt like this journey, I guess, has been so far, it would definitely be risk. And not just risk on my own part in terms of putting myself out there for opportunities that I found to be pretty intimidating, but I also think for presenters or administrators who are willing to take a risk on me, because I think there is an element of that, especially when you're working with young singers. Since you asked, I'm 30, I'm still very much a young singer, and I think when you're trying to provide those opportunities to young singers, there's a huge element of risk in it, and I think that's been a huge pillar of my journey so far. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I think of like Houston Grand Opera, Des Moines Metro Opera as two large organizations that essentially took a risk on me. They gave me an opportunity to train in their program. And Des Moines, like an opportunity to take on a role debut and in a totally new capacity. I'm really thankful to them, because I think it's not until you take those kinds of risks or do those things that really scare you that you can expect any kind of growth. And that's always been something that I've been after. And so I'm really grateful to both of them for those chances.
I mean, I think sort of the point I'm making or trying to get at is that you did the things that we're supposed to do to like have a career. Like you did Houston, you went, I guess you went to Bard. I forget where you went before Bard. Did you study with Dawn Upshaw at Bard?
Yeah,
Oh my
yes,
God,
I
I love
did.
her so much. Okay. So
Oh my gosh, yes, me too.
You went to a small school. You had like great training. You got to, be close to greatness or learn from one of the greats. Then you did Houston Grand Opera Studio. You placed in the Met Council auditions. I forget the Lafont competitions, And so these are all the things like we know these are the steps. And you actually did the steps. And now you are singing in essentially a world premiere production at the Met as one of the lead roles. So, and it all happened. It felt like for the audience, felt like it all happened in the span of like 3 years. Obviously, it happened a lot longer than that, but all of these things seemed so close together that I would not have time to keep track of something like you because it feels like it's happening very fast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember early on the first festival I ever participated in was the Music Academy of the West. And I remember John Churchwell at the time, at one point when we were having a coaching or some kind of a session, he just, he had a lot of emphasis on hard work and really staying disciplined to your technique and your craft, because when lightning strikes or when it happens, he was like, it's going to be fast. It's going to be fast. It's going to feel like it's overnight, and you're not going to have a chance to kind of pump the brakes and reevaluate. So you need to make sure that, you're consistently showing up for yourself so that you're ready for when a moment like that happens, if it happens. And, yeah, I mean, dang, I definitely think he was kind of right. Like, it does feel in many ways like a lot has changed overnight, even though per his advice, I feel like I've tried to consistently show up for myself and give myself the same product for each contract that I've done that's kind of led up to these moments. But yeah, it has kind of felt like somewhat overnight in many ways.
Well, I want to get back to the Richard Eyre Marriage of Figaro. And I actually like this production a lot. I feel like it is in the wake of like Downton Abbey and Bridgerton and stuff like that. Like suddenly we can do a production like this in this time period, and the audience now gets the reference, even though it might not be necessarily inspired by Downton Abbey. We understand more like the power dynamics and the upstairs, downstairs of it all, And I think with more traditional productions of Figaro, I think people are just not used to seeing so many 18th century costumes that they really wouldn't know, the difference between the Countess's costumes and the difference between, Marcellina's costume, So this production, the Richard Eyre, makes things a little bit more explicit about the class while keeping it in a period. And I actually think it's a really beautiful production. Do you feel like there were limitations to performing this role, which I don't know how many times you've done it already and how many different productions, but it feels like it's a role you're going to be with for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I love and loved this production for the very same reasons. I feel like it clarifies a lot of the action and the relationships between the characters in a way that, like you're saying, in other period pieces may be harder for the audience to grasp. And there's a lot of other moments of like suspension of disbelief that I feel like this production kind of smooths some of those things out. This was my second time professionally taking on the role, but it was actually the first opera role that I ever performed in school. I did my undergraduate at the Eastman School of Music, and in my senior year of college, they did The Marriage of Figaro, and I was one of the Carabinos for that production. And so, when this opportunity came along, it definitely felt like some kind of crazy full circle moment to be able to do it. And in such a great production with just such an incredible cast. I feel like now I'm digressing. I'm losing track of the original question.
No, you're doing great. I'm just thinking about you as Cherubino and how physical you are, and in that production, I think all Carabinos ultimately it's a very physical role, but I was thinking about your performance in that and how you're like, running around and running under beds and jumping and stuff like that, and it's like, do you actually have to, be in a certain type of shape?
Oh yeah. Yes, I think so, because I think I definitely try to take care of my body anyways, but I think that, by keeping yourself in a certain level of physical shape for a role that has those kinds of physical demands, all it does is open up opportunities for physical body languages or physical body language and choices that you can make as the character. When I think of a young boy, I don't think of a lot of filtered physicality in a way, someone who's not necessarily thinking about he literally says, I don't know what I am or what I'm doing. And I think that you can translate that also to, how he is with his body. He can't control any part of it. And so I think there has to be some level of freedom and a lack of judgment in terms of how you're throwing yourself around and throwing yourself into the physicality of a role like this. I think of it in the same way, like for l'enfant, for the Revel, and anytime you're embodying,
I was just about to bring up the l'enfant because not this, the boy. Okay, there's the child and l'enfant, but I started thinking already. My brain went to this cunning little vixen from this past summer, and I don't know how heavy your costume was, but to the audience, it felt like you were in full on furry, And and
it was hot.
And this is Des Moines, Iowa, in the heat of July. And like we all went outside, like into I forget what you call that area, like the patio after the opera.
Yes.
And it's even hotter outside. And you must have lost 5 pounds doing that role.
Oh yeah. In sweat, probably. In sweat alone, I feel like I must have just totally shed an entire weight class. But I also felt like, in comparison to some of the other characters who had so many more layers, oh my goodness, it was warm for sure. And definitely also another physical role, not necessarily to the same level of doing something like Cherubino when you're literally running around the stage, but along the same vein.
Yeah. I want to pause. I'm going to put something into this conversation here that I didn't prepare you for, and you can answer it how you want. But so I'm starting to think that Peter Gelb wanted the audience to know who you were by putting you in this Richard Eyre production because of his plan to present you as Rosa Sachs in Kavalier. Do you feel like there's any truth to that theory?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know.
Rosa Sachs is the role that you're singing right now in Kavalier and Clay at the Met, which is a new production. It's basically a world premiere if we discount the Indiana University production. So
yes. I can't pretend to know what the inner workings of an administration like the Metropolitan Opera would be, but I do know that, like, for myself, I felt a lot of pressure in terms of the Nozze production, simply because as an artist, as a singer, I have a variety of interests in terms of repertoire, and I wanted to really convey that by being able to offer a successful role in standard repertoire and also show an interest in contemporary opera and new works, because per my training at Bard, it's kind of an equal parts curriculum where there's equal stress on opera, art song, chamber music, contemporary works, and working with living composers. And that, I think, has extended to my interest as a professional.
The Dawn Upshaw formula.
Yes, exactly. It's a good formula. She's not doing too bad. So, and so I think that definitely represents my interest as a singer. And so I'm not sure in terms of what Peter Gelb or the Met's intentions were in terms of these productions, but I know for myself, there's been equal weight for both of those productions for that reason, because I know they say, like, you can't do everything, like you have to choose something. I'm like, well, I don't want to choose one thing. I love everything. I eat it up, and there's no shortage of repertoire that interests me and repertoire that I want to do at the highest level. And so I'm hoping that this past calendar year has signified that in some way.
Yeah, it's hard with the contemporary operas for us to understand what the fuck is. Like, what is Rosa Sachs' voice type supposed to be? And now, as one of the first people to sing this role, it's sort of up to you. It's like, well, what did Sunlee Pierce sound like? Do I have the Sunlee Pierce, technique? Do I have the Sunlee Pierce tone quality?
Oh my God. That's a terrifying thought. I'm sorry for anyone that feels that way.
I said basically the same thing to Julia Bullock, who, created the role of Cleopatra in the John Adams opera. I was like, how the H is anybody supposed to walk in your footsteps? This role is nuts, like it's written for you and it's exploiting all the things that you're known for, And we know that Rosa Sachs wasn't written for you specifically, but most people are going to hear it for the first time with your voice.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's something that's so beautiful about Mason's compositional style is the arias, not just my own, but I'm sure many mezzo-sopranos are just ready to eat that all up. And many of the arias are so excerptable from the piece, not only contextually, but musically. And I think something that's beautiful about a lot of this music is there are so many people I can hear singing this. I remember in preparing for this and rehearsing this, there were many times where I thought of friends, colleagues, peers who I thought would sing this music so beautifully and do it so much justice. And, I think, of course, like we always want to find the perfect vocal fit, but I also think Rosa is such an interesting character for a woman to get to play on an operatic scale that I think the best way to try and find, in these instances with contemporary music, to find out whether it fits you is to think about it from the character first. Because oftentimes they say like singing is a mental game, and oftentimes tapping into the emotion of it is what helps make certain things vocally possible, because you're getting out of your head and all of the technical stuff. And I think Rosa is a really great example of that. She's just such an interesting character that can fuel the vocalism and help make it possible and accessible for anyone, soprano or mezzo.
Well, for those people who have not read Kavalier and Clay, the Michael Chabon novel, can you say something about the character, without maybe going into plot, some characteristic of this woman, of this person that makes her unique in operatic dramaturgy?
Yeah, I think she's passionate, she's charming, she's whimsical, she's free, she's so smart. And I really think that she is, in the book as well as in the opera, the catharsis for the whole piece. She is in many ways, I think the dramatic pulse, the heartbeat of the opera. So many of the messages of the opera itself that are also inherently in the book, she sings those things. And so I think she's kind of the emotional track of course you can follow any characters, but I think in terms of where the audience is supposed to be in each moment and how they're reacting to each character's journey, I feel like so much is in Rosa's character and how she develops over the course of the book as well as in the opera.
Well, since you brought up her intelligence, I'm going to pivot here and ask you about your Asian American identity. When I was snooping around your website, it was like the first sentence that I read. And, I want to let people be, I don't want to make people identify with their ethnicity. I feel like that's unfair. I'm half Mexican, half Filipino, and like I would never identify as a Mexican or identify as a Filipino person because I didn't grow up in either place, and I think of myself as purely American. But people see me and they want to figure it out, and like there seems like they're not even comfortable until they understand what I am, and I end up just usually telling them, But back when I was a jerk 20-year-old, I would make people guess, and I would be like, I'm American. I wouldn't even answer their question. And now it's like, you know what? It'll make you feel comfortable if I just tell you right now. And I also tell people that I'm gay. Like, it just, make this very clear. These are all the, you can now feel comfortable that you know this about me, But I guess people would look at you and sense that she's something, And then with your name, it's like, but her last name is like a white name. So, Am I going down a track that you understand what I'm talking about right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like my name has somehow perfectly explained my halfness, like half
Yeah.
Irish, half Chinese. It
Okay.
kind of like sets it up for me perfectly so that I can I don't know, I guess a segue into it pretty easily, or people can grasp it pretty easily once I explain, if they do ask, where Sun Lee comes from, or what my background is.
Now, I don't know which of your parents is Chinese, but do you have like the Asian parenting kind of thing in your life that makes you need to excel and, you know, prove that being an artist was an okay choice because look, I did it well, you know?
Actually, my mom is American born. My grandparents immigrated from China. So my mom is Chinese and my
Okay.
dad was Irish. And both of my parents were and are academics. My mom is associate dean of faculty at Hamilton College, and my dad was a psychology professor there. And my mom was a psychology professor at Hamilton College before she transferred into administration. And because both of them were in our academics, I think that drive kind of comes equally from both sides, actually. Especially because my mom was American born. Like I didn't grow up speaking Chinese. We had, like, of course, my mom cooked a lot of Chinese food, and we celebrated the Lunar New Year and all of these things. And um, but it wasn't at the same level as a child whose parents had actually immigrated from the country that they were from. um for me, like, being mixed race has always been kind of an interesting experience, because I think of it as, of course, I don't know what this experience is like, but I imagine it is somewhat like adoption. Like, you're not totally sure where you fit in, because if you're adopted from another country and you go back, you don't quite feel like you can assimilate into that culture because that's not what you grew up with. But then when you're in the country that you now live in, you might still feel othered because you don't look like the people there. And so that's kind of how I've looked at my identity in many ways, is that I could equally feel out of place in a room full of Asian people because I don't speak the language of like my background. And I've never been to China. So I could easily feel othered, or an element of exclusion in that regard, but also in a room full of white passing or Caucasian people. Obviously they can at times sense that I must have some kind of a different ethnic background. Um, but in many ways, I think that that's actually been pretty useful in terms of helping me find my own singular place, because I don't necessarily feel like I'm representing or coming from an entire monolith or like a group of people. It's helped me feel like a single identity, or a single entity moving through space and kind of figuring it out, with influences from both sides of my racial identity. Um, of course, like, I grew up in a really predominantly white, suburban, upstate New York town. And so I was probably one of the most ethnic people growing up. There was probably a small handful of Asian, like full Asian people, but I mean, you know, it was very much of like a Caucasian pool of people and stuff. So I struggled at times with the Asian part of my identity, simply because that's how I grew up. But I found, especially being in the arts, as I've also met lots of my Asian colleagues and stuff like that, that there's the only place you can kind of belong is within yourself, because there's always some element of that's missing, if that makes sense.
Do you feel a camaraderie with other Asian opera singers, like, I don't know, Hong Ji Woo, like, or Mei Guang? Oh God, the soprano.
Meg Zhang.
Mei
Oh
Guizhang, yeah.
yeah.
Or
Oh yeah.
obviously
I mean,
Hera, you just sang with this summer, you know.
yeah, because I think there's a beautiful sense of community in the industry. I think with Asian singers, of just kind of wanting to take care of each other. I think also because that's a cultural thing in terms of like East Asian um, um, cultures of just like a big sense of community and family and the idea of the collective over the individual. And so I've always felt really cared for and looked after, especially by those like Hera or Megway or like Andrew Sensen, who are more established and kind of have more of it figured out than I do. I definitely have always felt really welcomed by them in the industry, and that I can turn to them for advice and help and support.
I think a lot of people would say that you have it together and that you're established.
Well,
you're the one singing out at the Met right now. So
yeah, it's the acting performance of a lifetime.
Well, is there anything you'd like to tell the audience about Kavalier and Clay just to entice them to come? I haven't seen it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. October 11th is the last performance, so it's a really busy time for singers. Like, it's the start of the season, so something like I also have some gigs. I would love to get down there, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it. But there's people listening in New York right now that are maybe, deciding, will I like this,
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's an extremely special and moving piece. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I think there are very few opportunities now to be a part of the creation of something or to see something put on its feet for the first time. The Met is one of few institutions here in the States that consistently does that. And I just think there's something incredible. It's like seeing a movie for the first time where you have no preconceived idea of how it's going to go or how it's going to sound. Yeah, there's just so few opportunities to be able to take something in for the first time and experience it, like not just hear it and see it, but experience it. There's such a beautiful sense of heart and, like we were saying before, like catharsis to this piece. And I think at the end of the day, especially with the state of the world nowadays, I think we all just kind of want to feel something and feel connected to the people around us. And I think this piece presents a perfect opportunity for people to do that.
Need to be saved. They are trapped in cities from Warsaw to Toulouse to Amsterdam to Prague. We have a ship of the Ark of Miriam. It can carry but a few hundred children at a time. But each crossing delivers these precious children to freedom. We cannot take them all, but shall we not save those we can? But shall we not save those we You know in your hearts what needs to be done. Give what you can. The Ark of Miriam is only a dream.
from a rehearsal of The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Mason Bates, Suddenly Pierce singing Rosa Sachs's Act 1 aria, Open Your Eyes, with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra conducted by Yannick Nézet-Séguin. So Adventures of Kavalier and Clay is running through October 11th. And I know many of my fellow singers listening, this is like the craziest time to be a singer. Like all the gigs are on full blast, whether it's the High Holy Holidays or your pro choral gig, or if you're in an opera, everything is happening this week and next week. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get out there, even though I really, really want to see this show. From the clips that are available online and the really nice like enrichment documentaries that the Met has put on the website, I feel like I would really, this opera sounds very accessible and, you know, the story's kind of gay. So it seems like it was perfect for me.
Made for you specifically.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mason Bates, you know, he's done some thornier stuff in the past. So he's a real crowd pleaser, at least among the two people on the podcast. By the way, if you are listening to the podcast right now, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, click follow on Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. You can also help us spread the word about Opera Box Score by giving us a rating on those platforms. And if you have a couple extra moments, couple extra friends who might be interested, drag them kicking and screaming to listen. We always need more forced listeners, and maybe even some voluntary ones as well. The 2-minute drill is right now.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
Next month, PBS's Great Performances will present The Magic of Grace Bumbry, recounting the story of the Missouri native who rose to fame in the 1960s international opera scene. The documentary, featuring interviews with vocal coach David Lee Brewer, singers Felicia Weathers and Anna Tomova-Sintau, and La Scala General Director Dominique Meyer, premieres October 3rd.
Last week, when the Teatro La Fenice in Venice announced that Beatrice Venezzi would be the new music director, the decision was immediately challenged by theater workers. Orchestra members sent a letter to Superintendent Nicola Colabianchi asking to revoke the appointment, and multiple workers' unions announced a, quote, permanent state of strike in protest. Detractors cite Venezzi's closeness to the far-right Giorgio Meloni government and her appearance at high-profile events associated with the Brothers of Italy party.
Other Italian theater unions have pledged solidarity with the strikers, including theaters in Milan, Torino, San Carlo, Bologna, Verona, Palermo, Florence, and Teatro Lirico di Cagliari, the National Academy of Santa Cecilia, and Teatro Carlo Felice. This appointment was imposed from above without consultation and is in direct conflict with the internal professionalism and the very dignity of those who build the theater's artistic identity, said the Teatro Regio di Torino, presumably in Italian and poorly translated. We are convinced that culture, if it is to remain alive, cannot be reduced to a stage to please the powers that be.
Vienna State Opera's 1958 production of Tosca, presumably held together with duct tape and the stage blood of many Scarpias, finally broke down last week. After a suspicious 45-minute intermission, director Bogdan Rosic had to announce that the stage machinery was failing. Act 2 would therefore be performed on the ramp with the curtain closed. This run of Tosca in Vienna, starring Elena Stikina, Jonathan Tatelman, and Ludovic Tezier, was set to conclude as of tonight's podcast recording date.
Opera Philadelphia's $11 ticket initiative transformed at least one opera newbie. Danny Maloney writes in the Philadelphia Citizen that he took advantage of the promotion and loved Missy Mazzoli and Royce Vavrik's The Listeners, which, quote, arrested my imagination like few things have in our oversaturated attention economy. Maloney went on to say, after my experience at the Academy of Music, I was hooked and started listening to albums and reading everything I could find to catch up. Mr. Maloney, have you ever tried listening to an opera podcast?
Now there's an idea. In major awards news, Germany's industry rag Opernwelt has named its Best of 2024-2025 yearbook. The winners include the Zurich Opera House for Opera House of the Year. The singers of the year were Eleonora Borato and Bogdan Volkov. Tobias Kratzer was the director of the year. The premiere of the year was Charles Tonamier at Théâtre Ulm. His work Le Petit Pauvre d'Assis. The Wreckers by Ethel Smith was the rediscovery of the year, and drumroll please, The Idiot by Mstislav Weinberg at the Salzburg Festival was the performance of the year. Congratulations to all the winners.
In trade news, Deutsche Oper Berlin has appointed not one, not two, but three conductors to significant positions. Maxime Pascal and Michele Spotti will share the title of principal guest conductor, and Titus Engel will be the theater's new conductor in residence. In the U.S., Portland Opera has announced that General Director Sue Dixon will retire at the end of this year.
In Trading Voices news, Russian mezzo Vasilisa Berzhanskaya has announced that she is returning to soprano repertoire. Said the singer on social media, quote, "Switching to mezzo-soprano was a creative step for me, a rewarding chapter of artistic growth and exploration. The mezzo-soprano phase lasted 10 years. I will continue to perform some mezzo-soprano roles that were previously agreed upon for a few more years. I really can't wait to meet my new roles, and I'm so excited about that."
Exit stage right. American-based Rodney Gottschall has died at the age of 81. Born in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Gottschall began his career as an apprentice artist at Santa Fe Opera and went on to appear at the Seattle Opera, New York City Opera, and Washington Opera, and later moved to Germany, where he sang at Regensburg, Freiburg im Breisgau, Bielefeld, Hanover, Dortmund, Mannheim, and Deutsche Oper am Rhein. In addition to roles such as Arastro, Osmin, King Philip, Prince Clement, Daland, and Gurnemanz, Gottschall was also a revered interpreter of German art song.
German baritone Franz Grundheber died on September 27th at the age of 88. Born in Trier, Grunheber studied in Hamburg and then at Indiana University and spent a summer at the Music Academy of the West. He joined the Hamburg State Opera in 1966, where he specialized in Wagner roles and was named Kammersänger in 1986. In total, he went on to sing more than 150 roles, including the world premiere of Giancarlo Menotti's Help, Help, the Globalinks.
Austrian composer Dieter Kaufmann has died at the age of 84. Kaufmann was a pioneer in electroacoustic composition, including the K&K Experimentalstudio, along with his wife to explore the possibilities of electronic music. Maybe it was the K&K Experimental Studio, who knows. He also wrote plenty of works in more traditional genres, including 4 operas.
And on this day, September 29th, in 1634, was the first performance of Henry Lawes's Masque, not an opera, Comus, with a text by John Milton, no less.
Operatic,
It was premiered in a castle in Shropshire. In 1812, it was the first performance of Josef Drexler's Die Feldmühle, a Singspiel in Vienna. In 1847, Franz Doppler's Benjovsky had its premiere in Budapest. Hervé's Le Vertigo had its premiere in Paris on this day in 1883. In 1921, Zygmunt Romberg's operetta Blossom Time premiered in New York City. Eugène d'Albert's Mr. Wu had its premiere on this day in Dresden in 1932. In 1949, Arthur Bliss's opera The Olympians premiered in London, and in 1965, opera stars Marilla Freni and Gianni Raimondi made their American debuts in La Bohème at the Metropolitan Opera. In 1968, it was the first performance of Luigi Dalla Piccola's Ulysses in Berlin.
September 29th birthdays include Italian conductor Franco Capuana in 1894. He died while conducting Mosè at the Teatro San Carlo in Naples in 1969. Sad. In 1916, German tenor Josef Traxel was born in Mainz. Happy birthday to the great conductor Richard Bonning, born this day in 1930 in Sydney. He's 95. Happy birthday. Happy birthday also to Leila Kuperli, born this day in 1945 in Austin, Texas. Happy birthday to Finnish mezzo-soprano Tuula Nieminen, born in 1949. And happy birthday to Italian soprano Adelina Scarabelli, born in Milan in 1953. And on this day, September 29th, in 2003, the New York Philharmonic, conducted by Lauren Mazel, performed the overture to the Marriage of Figaro on the roof of the Ed Sullivan Theater as part of a broadcast of Late Show with David Letterman.
Truly an overture, am I right? That's your 2-minute drill.
Leila Kuberli singing the cavatina from Rossini's Elisabetta Regina d'Inghilterra, which suspiciously sounds like Una voce poco fa. And since we heard that earlier in the episode, I thought we would hear that version of it. I actually love that aria. I was first introduced to it by Cecilia Bartoli in her second Rossini album, Rossini Heroines, which remains one of my favorite all-time albums. But I started, because I liked that aria so much, I wanted to hear everybody sing it. And there's a great recording of Kavalier singing it in a complete set with Jesus Lopez Cobos, I think. But the great recording of that aria is by Leila Gencer, who on the recapitulation of that material sings it as slow as possible. And it's just so thrilling to hear her do those phrases like on one breath and to float those high notes, and just makes you think about that material in a completely different way, because I think that material is so catchy and it's actually more fun to sing it fast, but to like slow it down and make it a slow jam like they do with like
Slow jam.
you know, those, yeah, it's totally a slow jam, una voce poco fa. So anyway, Leila Kuberli, a great voice. I don't know why we don't hear her more often. I think her tone quality is so beautiful, so dark, but also so fluid, so like limpid. Happy birthday, Leila Kuberli. That was from 1985 in Torino, where they're mad at the Venetians.
They truly are mad. The Venetians are very grumpy. All the Italians are mad. When I first found this story a few days ago, it was just a couple of Italian theaters that had signed on against this appointment, and now every single Italian opera house has been like,
yeah, what did she do wrong? What is the problem with her?
So she is far right, very fashy kind of person, as far as we can tell. So what I think the story is, though, is this, stark contrast between the board of directors, the mayor of Venice, everyone came together and unanimously appointed her. Her name is Beatrice Venezzi, and she has been not just working with the Meloni government. Meloni, of course, being the very far
Prime
right
Minister Giorgia
Prime
Meloni,
Minister, and she has also made what seem to be very unilateral appearances at many far right sort of rallies and things like this. There's also some concerns that this is a very political appointment in general, even beyond her right-wing politics. The fact that this that she hasn't had as much experience with a lot of the conducting as a lot of the orchestra members would like seems to also be a factor. But I think what's interesting is the fact that, the board of directors, this is a unanimous vote. They were all very enthusiastic about it. And then within a day, a permanent strike was announced until she was gone, which is truly two very strong sides of that coin. Which, kind of, I think, reflects the overall, right-wing rise in Europe and across the world, and the general opposition to that by, frankly, sane people. Now, this is a developing story. Obviously, this happened very quickly.
Looks like they're about to go on strike, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know if this will still be the case next week. We don't know if people are going to dig their heels in. We don't know if they're going to say are bad and fire her. But the fact that every single opera house in Italy, it seems like, is coming out against the appointment is truly striking. I think that there is a real sense. A lot of people are starting to get a little sweaty, I think, particularly in Italy, seeing the far right rise because, the Italians invented fascism and they can see it sometimes better than others. So
no, it smacks of, like Trump appointing that 22-year-old for Homeland Security, like secretary.
Yeah.
And apparently Venezzi had only ever she's never conducted at Fenice before, except for a promotional event. And she's known mostly for her TV appearances and from like her ads for hair products. There's definitely accusation that her talent does not rise to the level of this appointment. A music critic, Alberto Mattioli, says, Venezzi is not a famous conductor who happens to be right-wing. she's famous because she is right wing.
Yeah, exactly. That is the long and short of it. And the fact that she was approved so unanimously and so excitedly, and, you know, hailing it as this big step forward, is concerning. And I'm not sure if every single person, you know, striking is striking because of her politics or because, you know, she's just not as qualified. But in either case, I think there's a little bit of an alliance going on here trying to get her out of the way.
Maybe they're going to change the Teatro La Fenice name to the Maloney Center for the Arts.
Maloney Trump Center for Arts. Yeah, it's a mess over there in Italy, but then again, it's a mess everywhere, but not a mess perhaps in Philadelphia. This was a nice little article that I found, wasn't it?
So sweet. Yeah, we'll link to this testimonial in the Philadelphia Citizen of Danny, what's his name? Danny Maloney. Mm-hmm. I think he's gay. I mean, I don't want to presume, but he sounds pretty gay. It
opens saying like he has a rule where he can't listen to opera past a certain hour anymore because of his husband or partner or whoever it is. And, but a year ago, he had never really like listened to an opera seriously before. He had been to a couple of performances for like, you know, friends of his when he was, you know, in college or whatever. It didn't click with him. But thanks to this $11 ticket, he was like, you know what? That's cheap enough. I'll go see what it's all about. And he's absolutely hooked. I mean, you could not ask for a better endorsement of the $11 ticket program, the pay what you can program that's been put in place at Opera Philadelphia than that, other than perhaps a lot of people saying that. I hope a lot of people are having the same experience. But I thought it was a really sweet article and it gave me some hope.
That was exactly what I was going to say. It's like, yes, these things can work. Get people in the theater, get them to experience what we do, and just let them explore and find it for themselves. And like, it looks like he really has been doing the hard work of like exposing himself to all the different types of opera. The article talks about his experience with Kavalier, and he's going to see complications. I think he plans on seeing it. I don't know if that's already happened. Yeah, he's looking forward to Complications Ensue, the Justin Vivian Bond joint. So yeah, good on him. And like, we should have him come on to the show and be like a field reporter about like what his experiences are.
That's a great idea.
So Danny Malone, if you're listening, pretend that you like sports and get in touch with us. Tennis is preferred. And we'd love to have you on.
Roll Tide. That's all I know. I just love, you know, Opera Philadelphia, you know, really looking forward, trying to like get ahead of the changes, you know, doing something really exciting, like, you know, because they've also been selling out their houses too, with this cheap ticket deal. And it seems to be, you know, cautiously optimistic, seems to be making some waves. On the other end of that spectrum, why are we still doing a production from 1958, Oliver? No wonder it broke.
Yeah. I mean, because actually, I talked about this with Matthew Polenzheim. I'm not sure if that made it onto the OBS interview, but maybe it's on the WFMT interview. You know, these productions are sort of just there for people to like be dropped in and, you know, Tosca here, this is a production that we've done forever. Like just go, like, you know, just add water, no rehearsal, you know. So yeah, luckily nobody was hurt. That would be a bad story.
I mean, it's really, you know, with a show that old, I mean, like, you know, I think there is something, I mean, obviously, you know me, I'm going to always be advocating for the new weird productions. That's the kind of stuff I like. I think it's more exciting to new viewers, although sometimes it can be more confusing if you go a little bit too far with it. But I cannot think of a single production from 1958 that we should still be doing. You know what I mean? I just don't get why, you know, we have these things on mothballs for decades and decades and decades. I mean, Oliver, you probably could have worked on that production back in the day.
Yeah, I had just turned 18, so.
Yes. Well, I mean, you know.
I just want to, before you wrap it up, I just want to say that Vasilisa Berzhenskaya sang Cenerentola in Chicago.
Yeah.
And she was great. Zero complaints. But when I heard her sing, I was like, that top is pretty easy for a mezzo-soprano, and the coloratura also was very easy. But, I think mezzos are expected to have good coloratura. So, but I was like, kind of soprano-y to me. So I feel very vindicated. So I should have said so back when I heard it, because Jack Swanson was in that show. I didn't want him to be mad at me for like saying anything disrespectful. I don't think it's disrespectful to say somebody sounds like a soprano, but I knew Jack would be listening, and I love Jack so much. I didn't want him to dislike me. I'm a people pleaser.
The taste of vindication, however, is sweet. Let's wrap this show up.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. That's how we wrap this show up. Oliver Camacho, you first.
Well, as part of my job, everybody knows I get advanced copies of albums that are going to be released. And next month, I think it's October 10th, we'll all be able to enjoy the new album featuring friends of the show, Aaron Morley and Lawrence Brownlee. It's a great kind of bel canto showcase, but also has Aaron Morley singing the Bell song from Lakme, and Lawrence Brownlee singing Je crois entendre from Pearl Fishers. But the rest of it is all bel canto. Awesome. It's excellent. They sound like $1,000,000. Perfect. I'm so glad that that Aaron Morley, first of all, is recording an Arias album, because I feel like we don't have enough Aaron Morley recordings, and we need it. We need them.
True. Completely agree. I have a good call, and that is the fact that the Ear Taxi Festival is coming up very soon. I believe this weekend.
Friday, like Thursday's the first day when this drops. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, Thursday is the day, but the day I'm looking forward to most. Oh, if you don't know, the Ear Taxi Festival is the sort of new music festival we have here in Chicago. But I'm very excited for Friday, October 17th for a number of reasons. First of all, that is a co-production, I guess you'd call it a co-production, with Chicago Fringe Opera, with a director who's a certain executive producer of some podcast. That's not why I'm bringing it up, though. I'm bringing it up because of the program. We have Jasmine Barnes performing her composition On My Mind, Regina Harris Bayaki doing No One's Child, and excerpts from the Kate Soper singing Here Be Sirens. Here Be Sirens is a cool piece. Kate Soper is, I think, in many ways what I would have been as a composer if I had any talent whatsoever. And I'm so excited for this weird combination of like avant-garde storytelling, philosophy, jokes, and, it is just delightful stuff. Lots of extended technique. I am so excited for it. That's October 17th at the Ear Taxi Festival here in Chicago. That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Get your voice heard and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. That is also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS using the Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is me. The executive producer of the OBS is George Cedarquist. For our guest, Sunlee Pierce, I'm Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera without the input of your subordinates. We're back with an all-new show next week, plus you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more Fach swapping. Join us.